Folks, I realize that right now more than ever, it's really hard to stay focused because there's so much on our plate and there's so much happening at one time. But we cannot lose sight of what's happening as we go into this election. And the one thing we cannot lose sight on, I know we talk about democracy every day, but we need to keep driving home the fact that women's rights were stripped away. And if Donald Trump is reelected, we are definitely going to be in a handmaid's tale, and that's not hyperbole. Donald Trump stacked the Supreme Court 6-3, giving the conservatives the edge. He says if he's reelected, he would appoint 2 more justices, even younger and even further to the right. That would leave it at 8-1. That means that for the rest of our lives, we would be under the rule of a far-right Supreme Court. There would be no hope in getting it turned back around. Not in our lifetimes, folks. That's just realistic. That's not me trying to spread hyperbole. That's just being real about it. It's something that would be gone for good if he's reelected. And he's out bragging about doing it. I've showed you the clips so many times of him bragging about overturning Roe versus Wade. He's proud, and Republicans are proud, and evangelicals are proud. And they don't care because it doesn't affect them. And if it does affect them, then maybe we'll see something start to shift. But until then, it looks like that we're just up the creek without a paddle with these folks. And I want you to take a look at this clip of Lindsey Graham because he says that abortion was a right a woman should have never had to start with, and that's why they just turned it over to the people. Let him go ahead and say this shit, and then I'm going to come back and tell you everything that is wrong with the let's turn it back to the people argument.
Let's break this down. The overturning of Roe. For over 50 years, the Supreme Court ruled that no elected official in this country could have a say about the life of the unborn, the rights of the unborn, until Roe was repealed. There's nothing in the Constitution, Trey, that says you have a right to an abortion. This was a judicially created fiat called the right of privacy that was made up from whole cloth. There's no specific mention of abortion in the Constitution, but liberal judges created a right to abortion that doesn't exist. Conservative justices turned this issue back over to the people. The Roberts Court, with some exception, has been the most constitutionally sound conservative court in my lifetime. Thank you, President Trump, for giving us constitutionally sound conservative judges on your watch. And the Democrats, my friend, will stack this court if they get the House, the Senate, and the White House. They will obliterate the conservative majority we worked for 50 years to create. So remember that when you vote.
So first of all, I'd like to just point out that he said that women should have never had that right to start with. And they don't think women should have had any rights to start with. They want women to remain silent. They want women to not be in charge. They've even went so far as to say it was a mistake to allow women to vote. So they don't want women to have rights. They don't want women to have an equal say. But when they try to spin this, that let's just put it back to the states and let's let the states decide, that argument, folks, falls apart really quick. And here's how. If you say, well, we just want to turn it over to the states, let the states decide, the states are still a government. You're still saying that the government should have a right to pry into someone's private life. You're still saying the government should be allowed to make decisions for someone's reproductive care. Regardless of whether it's state level or federal, it makes no difference. It can still, the state is still government. It's a smaller form of it, but you're still saying that the state should have say over a woman's body. So if you make the argument of, well, if you don't like it, just move to a state where you can get one. Just go somewhere else. Okay, I can use that same logic on gun control. Let's say that your state passes some gun laws and bans some things that you disagree with. Are you going to move? Are you going to go to some state that'll let you get it? Or are you going to kick and complain and say, wait a minute, my constitutional rights have been taken away? And what if suddenly your state was to mandate vaccines? Are you going to say that that state government should have the right to tell you to do that? Or are you going to say, it's my body, let me go make my own choice somewhere else? Are you starting to catch on as to why that argument does not work? When you say turn it over to the states, it's so ridiculous how they come up with these little one-liners. And uneducated people, and I hate to be that brutally blunt about it, but uneducated people who don't have a damn clue what's going on in this world will latch onto it and go, yeah, they just turned it over to the states. I just turned it over to the states, man. That's all it was. I ain't got nothing against no women, man. I just turned it over to the states. Yeah. Okay, so let's turn other things over to the states. And let's see how you like that. Let's see what happens when suddenly the state tells you that you can't buy a certain gun. Let's see what happens when the state tells you you have to go get a vaccine. Or let's say the state one day tells you that you have to get a vasectomy. Let's see how many dudes run out real quick to say, whoa, wait, because Project 2025 is definitely going to come after it all. They don't want you to ever be able to get divorced. You wouldn't even be allowed to get divorced again. You wouldn't be allowed to have birth control. Those are the things they're coming after. So they could very well have mandatory vasectomies. What are you going to do then? Oh, well, I'll just try to go to a state that they won't make me do this. No, you're going to kick and scream every step of the way. There are so many people who just casually watch the news, and when they do, the mainstream media tells them what to think, and that's where they listen, they zero in for a minute, and then they go away. Then something like what's happened here lately with the Supreme Court rulings and the debate happens, and they all look back over for a minute. They're tuned back in just for a minute, and then they all look away again. We're here every day. We're here every day with our eye on the ball. Now, just imagine if you was a carpenter. I said this in a members-only video. Imagine if you were a carpenter, and let's say you were a master at it. And let's say that every 4 years, someone was allowed to just come in off the streets that knew nothing about how to build a house and was allowed to swing a hammer. That's what it feels like when we sit here and talk about these things day in and day out to people who casually show up. I know so many people who I've seen posting things, and I'm like, do you not realize how this is going to affect you if Trump's reelected? I know you're pumping your fist right now because you're casually tuned in, but if you were really, truly tuned in, you would be scared to death. You should be, especially if you're a woman. Especially if you're a woman. And if you're a man that has any brain in your head, you would want your daughter to have the same rights that your mother had when she had you. You would want your wife to have the same rights. You would want your sister to have the same rights and your friends. Folks, if you really were about less government, then it wouldn't matter if it was federal or state. It wouldn't make no difference. You wouldn't want someone else making that decision for you. So why in the hell are you on the side of people who's trying to make the decision for them? Think long and hard about it. Take all the time you need. If you need me to talk to you in private about it and work you through it, I'll do any damn thing I can to save women's rights and to save our democracy.